Welcome to Excel 2016, Module 1, Part 3. During this section, we will be working with formulas and functions. When you're working with formulas in Excel, it's important to remember the order of operations for mathematical equations. I was always taught the acronym, please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. To remember that order, parentheses come first, exponents followed by multiplication and division, followed by addition and subtraction. So if you are having trouble with formulas and they're not doing what you expect them to do, you might want to look at this order of operations and see if you need to put some parentheses around things, perhaps, to change the order. In today's work, this will not be an issue because they're pretty simple formulas, but as we progress through the semester, you may have some issues with these things. So you'll want to remember this order of operations when you're working with Excel formulas. Okay, so if you do not have the game card worksheet open, you want to make sure you open that Game Guard workbook with the customer order worksheet as the active worksheet, and we created this in video 2 or part 2 from module 1. So in this one we work with the formulas. The first one we're going to be using is to calculate a line item charge. So we're going to type the word charge in H12. Now in H13, we're going to start working with formulas. So let's say I look at this and I said, okay, the charge is the price times the quantity. All formulas in Excel must begin with an equal sign. So that's always the first thing you're going to type. And let's say I just said, okay, the price is $39.95, and I multiply that by 2. And it does give me an answer. That's not the way you want to do it, and I'll illustrate why in just a second. What we really want to do is we want to use cell references. The use of cell references allows us to create a formula once and then copy it to multiple cells to complete the same function in those. It also allows the data that is used to change or to calculate that answer to change, and the formula will automatically be recalculated. So let's take a look at a use with formulas and then we can compare them. So we're going to say in H14 is equal to, and instead of typing 2455, I'm going to click on the cell reference. You could type in the cell reference and type F14. I prefer to use the mouse because that eliminates the risk of typing errors. I multiply by, which is the asterisk, and I multiply by the quantity, which is stored in G14. When I'm done with my formula, I hit enter and it will calculate an answer. Now you do notice that while you're building the formula, Excel color codes the cell references and highlights that in both the formula as well as the cell so that you can see what values are being used in your formula. So when I hit enter, you notice a couple things are different. First of all, it did pick up the number formatting from the price field. So when we use that cell reference, it does format our answers based on those input cells. Since we typed in numbers up here, it did not know that one of them was $1, so we lost that formatting. Another thing that we can see is going to happen is the answer is displayed. The formula is no longer visible in the cell. However, you can come up here and see the formula in the formula bar. And if you click on it in the formula bar, then it does do the color coding again so that you can see where the cells are that are being referenced. Be careful if you have clicked in it, because if you start clicking other places, it may alter the formula. So make sure you hit enter before you do anything else. Now let's take a look at the difference in why it's better to use cell references. So Leslie called up now, and she says, I've changed my mind. I want 5 of the kings and jacks and 4 of the Tweedle games. Whoops. And 4 of that game. Now notice, when I changed the form here, the quantity to 4, it automatically fixed the value it displayed in my charge. However, because I used numbers here, it did not fix the charge. I would have to go in and remember to change that also. And that's not a good idea. So what you want to do is you want to come in here and change that to cell references. So you would say it's equal to F13, and again you can either type or click, multiplied by G13. Now you can see that it fixed those prices. So if Leslie calls back and said, oh, I was just kidding, I really only want 2 and 1, then it did it. I'm going to just close that one. Change that to a 1. You can see it automatically fixes those formulas. So that is one benefit of using our cell references. We can modify the data that is used in the formula, and it will automatically recalculate. Now let's take a look at the other benefit, which is my ability to copy and paste. So if I want to use this formula in the next 3 rows, I'm going to highlight the formula that is in H14, and in my clipboard group on the Home tab, I'm going to choose Copy. Then you're going to highlight the 3 rows that you want to copy it into, and you're going to choose Paste. When you copy and paste, it makes a copy of the formula in the cells that you paste it to. You still maintain the original one, and you get copies. You can also paste in multiple times. So if you had only pasted to 1 row, then you could click to the next one and click paste again. As long as you see this moving dashed line and you click paste, it will continue to paste each time you do it. Once you do something else, then it won't work anymore. You can't paste anymore. Now, Excel also has numerous built-in functions, common mathematical things that we do that they've tried to make easier. So, for example, if I'm trying to add up a column of numbers, I could say I want to add H13 plus H14 plus H15 plus H16 plus H17, and that's a lot of typing and clicking. And let's exaggerate that and say I had 500 rows of data. Now I have to be sure that I add each one. Don't miss any. Don't add any twice. There's a lot more room for error. So let's see how we can use Excel's Autosum function to do it for us. So we're going to type subtotal in G18. And then we're going to come over here into H18, and we are going to use Excel's sum function. So I'm going to come up here, and in my home group, you'll see this Autosum button. If I click on that, it fills in the formula for me. Notice it still starts with the equal sign. Functions must start with an equal sign. Then it says use Excel's sum function, and it gives a range of numbers that we're going to add up. If that range is correct, as it is right here, you simply hit enter. And you have that correct answer. Again, the answer is displayed. However, if I go up and I am on that row, you do see that function up in the formula bar. All right, let's do a few more formulas. So we're going to start out by entering up here in G11 the word sales tax, and in H we're going to type in 5%. So again, why would we want to use a typed in percentage as opposed to just typing that value in our formula? Because if the tax rate were to change, all we would have to do is type in the new rate here, and all of our functions using, or formulas, using that value would automatically be updated. So we're going to calculate the tax. And we're going to say that is equal to, because remember, all formulas begin with an equal sign, the subtotal multiplied by the tax rate. When you're done entering your formula, you hit enter. Once again, the dollar answer is saved. However, the formula is still stored in there. Okay, so you can see that in the formula bar. We also have a handling fee, and that is a flat fee. So it's always $4.75, so we do not need to put a formula in there for that. And then finally we're going to create a total. And so we want to use Autosum. Now just so that you can see, you do not have to use the buttons. It just is a lot easier. We're going to type in equals, then type the word sum, open the parentheses, and then select the range of numbers we're trying to add. and close the parentheses, and we get our answer. Again, if you are to click in this formula on the formula bar, it will highlight that range so that you can verify that the formula is entering the, or has the correct range that is adding up. All right, the next thing we're going to look at are a few things of how we can move data around in our worksheet, and we're going to compare the cut and paste to the copy and paste. So before I make any changes, I do want to hit enter so that I don't change my sum function. Now, let's say that I decided these cells here, I really wanted to move them down one more row and have a blank row. So if you hover over that bottom border so that you see the cross with the arrows, that cross with an arrows indicates that you are moving something. So if I hold down the mouse with the cross and arrows and start to pull the mouse down, you'll see the large green box start to move. This shows you where you're moving that to. It's going to move the data and adjust the formulas so that they will still work. So that's one way to move data. Another way to move data is with cut and paste. So if I go up to click on A3 and I want to move everything from this point down that I have entered, and I want it to move down a few rows. So what you're going to do is I want to hold down the Control, the Shift, and the End, and that will select every cell down to the lower right corner where I have anything typed. And what I'm going to do is I am going to cut, and then I'm going to paste that information down to begin in cell A9. Now, cut and paste differs from copy and paste because cut moves the information. If you remember when we did copy and paste, it kept the original and created another copy. Cut and paste moves the data. It does not make a copy. And notice you can only cut and paste one time. Once you have done a cut and paste, you cannot do another paste option. You would have to cut again if you needed to move it again. All right, let's take a look at a few more functions. We are going to look at a couple of count options, as well as the difference between the count and the sum. So we are going to put some headings here, and a couple of the things that I'm going to do are not in the text, but I want to make sure you see the difference between some of the options. So we're going to start out here with an A3 with an order ID, then a shipping date, whoops, then a delivery, and then I'm going to do items ordered, and I'm going to do quantity or total quantity ordered. Okay, so our order ID is C10489, and our shipping date is 4/3/2017. Delivery is standard. Oops, I have my hands on the wrong keys. And now we want to count the number of individual games that were ordered. It's important to remember there are different count functions. There's one count function that will count numbers. If there is a number in the cell, it will count it. There's others that will count letters or numbers, and there's some that will only count it if it's blank. Okay? Now, we could type in equals count, or we could come over here to the Autosum, and instead of pushing the word Autosum, we're going to choose this drop-down arrow. And you can see that one of the options that I can do with this button is to count numbers. So I'm going to choose that. Now, it didn't fill in a range. And that's because there's no numbers around it, so it doesn't know what to count. So what you have to do is you have to come in here and say, okay, I want to count G19 through 23. So if it doesn't fill in the correct result, then, or the correct range itself, you have to fill in the range for it. Now let's say instead of counting column G, let's say I decided, you know what, I'm going to count the titles. So I'm going to type in equals count, and I'm going to select the titles in D19 to 23. And it says 0. That's because these are text fields, and this particular count function only counts if it's a numeric field. These are text. Okay, so you do have to be aware. There is a count A function that if I use that here instead and put an A in there, now it would count them because count A will in fact count text-based fields. Now if I wanted to see the total count of the quantities ordered, then I would have to use a sum. Again, that's the wrong range. So I would have to come down here and select my range of quantities. And you can see now it came up with a different answer than the count. Because the count is counting the number of cells that have a value in them, a number. Sum is actually adding up the numbers. So you will get two different answers. So you want to make sure you understand the difference between count and sum. And remember that if you're just using count, and it says it right here, it's only going to count numbers. So you need to make sure you select an appropriate area of data that has numbers in it. The last thing we're going to look at, well, two more things. We're going to look at how to insert rows and delete rows. And then we're also going to look at something called flash fill. So let's start out by saying we wanted to insert another item. Leslie called back and she wants to add an item. So we're going to insert that around row 21. So remember before I told you to select an entire column, you're going to highlight the letter. Click on the letter. To highlight an entire row, you're going to click over here on the number. Okay, so highlight row 21, and then you're going to either choose the insert button, or you can do a right click and choose insert here. Either one of them will work. And so now on this one, we're going to add a new item. So we have SU, and it tries to fill that in, but that's not right. So we're going to type over it, 25. And when we type SU, it fills in supplies for us, which is correct, so we can tab through that. Type in D, and our Draybeck brothers come in, so that's correct. We're going to tab through that. And then now we have miniatures, set, and it has 12 in parentheses. Okay, there are no number of players for this, so we'll leave it blank. It is $23.55, and we want 2 of those. When we type this number in, you're going to see both the items ordered and the quantity ordered are going to change up in B6 and 7. And notice they changed. So now I'm going to copy this formula from H20, and I am going to paste it into the row that we had. And if you scroll down, you now see that the totals have also changed. The reason these formulas automatically changed for us is that we added the new row in the middle of the range. So if you have to add a new row, as long as you add it inside the range that's already in the formulas, your formulas will be updated automatically. So if you notice here, we used rows 19 originally, it said, to 23. We added a new row 21 in the middle of that, so it just adjusted our rows, our range for us. If you had added it at the top or at the very bottom, it might not have been included in your formula because the formula would have shifted when that item's moved. Okay, so always make sure that you insert it in the middle. Now let's say she also said, I want to get rid of the dice. We don't need those. So again, I'm going to select the whole row by clicking on the number. I can do the right click, choose delete here, or I can come up here and choose delete. And because, again, I deleted information in the middle of my range, all of my totals are automatically adjusted. Okay? All right, so we've seen how to insert an entire row. Same thing would work with an inserting of an entire column. But what happens if I just want to insert part of a column? I just want to insert some cells. So for example, I want to add something in column A. But I don't want all of column A to shift into column B because the heading at the top, I still want the quantity ordered and the ship to and all that information to be in column A. So what you're going to do is you're going to highlight the area where you want to add cells. That's going to be A17 through A28. The reason you have to include all of this is so that your sales tax and your subtotal information will stay in alignment with the charge column. So we're going to choose the insert drop down arrow and say I want to just insert some cells. Not a whole row, not a whole column, not a whole worksheet, just some cells. And then it says, how do you want to do this? Do you want to insert them by shifting them to the right, shifting them down? And it double checks here. Are you sure you didn't mean a whole column or a whole row? And we just want to shift everything over to the right. Now, one thing that does sometimes happen, and you see it here, is it does mess up your formatting of your column widths. And the reason for that is because the column width is assigned to the column, not the data. And so when the data shifts, it goes into a new column that has a different answer. So let's go ahead and change column E to have a column width of 25. And then I'm going to select these rows and I'm going to have them scroll up. We'll do an auto fit, and then the top row will move up a little bit. There we go. So now you can read all the information. All right, now let's take a look at the new field we're going to add. We are going to add something called a store ID. This technique is called flash fill. And what flash fill does, so we're going to type store ID. Flash fill tries to find the pattern of what you are doing and continue that pattern for you in the rest of the rows. So what our pattern is going to be is we are going to start with the stock ID. So capital SG71. Then we want a dash. And then we want the first word in the title. So Kings. And hit enter. So on the next row, we're going to start that out again. F, G, and it says, oh, wait a minute. I think I see your pattern. Sometimes it does not work on the second one. I've had it in the exact same file not work on the second one, and when I start typing the third one, and it works there. I've also seen sometimes where I can't get it to work till a fourth one. So if you can't get it to work, keep trying. But one thing to keep in mind, if you are on an older version of Excel, Excel 2013 was the first version to offer flash fill. So if you are on Excel 2010 or before, it will not do this. Okay, you have to be on the two newest versions. So once you get it to see the pattern, you hit enter and it fills in the rest of them for you, and you do not have to save it, or excuse me, type it. So that is flash fill. And again, it is only available on the newest versions. So the last 2 versions. So we're going to go ahead and save this. And then we're going to see in video 4 how the formatting and printing will work.